Hi guys, so I wanted to show you a little bit about one-point perspective and explain what it is, and then do a cool little drawing with you to show you how to bring shapes back into space using one point on a horizon line. So whenever you're doing one-point perspective, I like to start off with what's called the horizon line. Now your horizon line is a line that goes side to side, so not up and down, but side to side. It is also a horizontal line, which again means that it runs left to right, not up and down. Vertical lines go up and down. So your horizon line here, I'll write that down. Horizon line. Your horizon line separates your sky from your ground. So I'll say this is my land, and this would be my sky. Okay? So whenever you're working with one-point perspective, you want to make sure that whatever you're drawing always goes back to this dot. Now this dot is very special, even though it's just a tiny little dot. This is also called the vanishing point, and it's basically where all of your shapes go to vanish. So as you can tell from here by my little example, what I do is I draw my shape, and then I bring the edges back to this vanishing point. So you can kind of see that's where all the lines kind of cease to exist, or go get a little bit smaller, okay? So now that we have our basic vocabulary down, we have a horizon line, our vanishing point, and this horizon line separates our sky from our land. I want to show you how you can make simple shapes look like they're going back into space using this vanishing point. So you'll need a pencil and ruler for sure, so then that way you could draw nice straight lines. Whenever you're holding down the ruler, you want to make sure you're using your hand that is not drawing. So your opposite hand is really pressing down and holding down the ruler so it doesn't wiggle whenever you're trying to draw a line. So I'm going to use this as my reference photo, and this is going just to be, over here on the side, and I'm going to show you how to draw these shapes, but also how to kind of color them in and get different values as well. So I'm going to start over here by drawing a triangle. So a triangle just is a shape, simple shape that has 3 sides, and you don't even need your ruler for this part unless you really want to make sure you draw straight lines. Now, here's the trick. We want to make it look like it's going back into space. So in order to do that, we have to pick the 3 points of the triangle. So we have a point here at the top, we have a point here at the corner, and we have a point here on the side. And we're going to connect our dots. So this will be our first dot, and here's our vanishing point. So remember, everything goes back to this vanishing point. It's a very important polka dot. So I'm going to take my ruler, line it up with the vanishing point, and also line it up with the first edge of my triangle, and I'm pressing down with my non-writing hand, and I'm going to just draw a line, boop, boop, from one point to the next point. Now I'm going to go to my next point, which is at the other corner of my triangle, and I'm going to just draw a line down. And then I'm going to go to my last point, and I'm going to bring that down as well. Okay? So now you have a shape that looks like it's going back into space using one-point perspective. So let's do our next shape. The next shape is a square. And the square is going to follow a pretty similar pattern. So I'm just going to draw the square. And here's my vanishing point. Now I have to see what edges go back to the vanishing point. So I'm going to pick this dot, and this dot. Now the reason why I'm just using these 3 and not this one as well is because if I were to draw a line from here to here, this would actually cut into the shape and leave an awkward little line, and this would actually be hidden behind this bottom plane of the shape and the side plane of the shape. So you actually don't need that edge. That's why I'm focusing on the other ones. So I'm going to go for my first edge, which this is just going to be almost like a straight line down, because this shape is right above the vanishing point. If you look at my example over here, this shape is a little bit to the right of the vanishing point. That's why you can see this side a lot more. So your placement really matters in this too. So because this is a straight line, this one will also be the same straight line. And then I'm going to take this bottom edge, connect it back to the vanishing point. And that will be your square in space. And again, you don't see that side just because it's right above the vanishing point. So that's why it looks a little bit goofy. Now over here, I have a rectangle that I drew in space. So I'm going to really move it over on the side. And let's see how that looks when it's all done. So again, I'm going to put a dot here, here, and here, because those are the three edges that are going to connect back to the vanishing point. If I put a dot here, do you see how that would cut the shape, and we don't want that, and it's going to be hidden behind the other two sides. So I'm going to just go ahead and continue my little process where I'm connecting those edges straight back to the vanishing point. Another cool thing that I want to point out to you guys is because these shapes are in the sky, think about when you're standing on land and you look up at something. So say if you really did see a floating square in space, you'd be seeing underneath of it and maybe a little bit of the side. So it's kind of interesting to see that the shapes that are above the horizon line, you see underneath of them and the sides, and the shapes that are actually below the horizon line, you're going to see the tops of them, because if you're standing on the land and you're looking down below your field of vision here, you'll see the tops and maybe the sides of the shapes. Now, these shapes here are more curvy. They're not as angular as these shapes, so it's going to be a little bit different to try to find the points that we're going to bring back. So I'll help to give you a little bit of tricks there. So over here, I'm going to make a circle. If you have a circle tracer at home, you could use that too. Now I'm going to think about how this is going to go back into space. And I think what I'm going to do is just visualize a line that's going back to this vanishing point. So I feel like the top of the circle would be about right here, and the bottom of the circle would probably be about right there. So then that way you have 2 points that are going to go back. So then you're just going to continue with that same process. Now that you've drawn your shape and you found your points, we're going to bring that back to the vanishing point. Okay. Now the very last shape that I had was a semicircle, and a semicircle is just a circle cut in half. So I'm going to draw a straight line first, and then a rainbow line at the top. It's kind of curved, and it touches both sides. Now this one, you're going to connect this point, this corner point, back to your vanishing point, and then the top part of this, as I'm visualizing it, I know it won't be this point because that will cut into our shape. So what I think the top of it would be maybe right here. And you could try a couple of things. As long as you have an eraser handy, you could try a couple different options if you feel like that's not the correct placement. So then I connect it back, and then connect my last shape back. Okay, so again, to go through this process, what you're going to do is draw your horizon line first. You're going to draw your vanishing point. I did mine in the center, but you can move it. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. Up here is your sky, down here is your land. And then what we did was we drew our shape. So one, you want to make sure you draw your horizon line. Okay. 2 is add your vanishing point. Which is this dot here. Okay. 3 is draw the shape of your choice. You might like drawing one of these a little bit more than the others, so you could have a whole paper full of squares if you want. So you draw your shape. And then the next thing we did with each one of our shapes was we found the points that go back into space. So I'm just going to call that draw your points. Okay, and then the very last step was to connect the dots and draw your lines going back into space. So connect dots, draw line. Okay, so these are your little steps, and this is exactly how we went about this. Now, if you want to add color to your final drawing, here's just something that I did if you're interested in doing this as well. I just have some colored pencils here, and even if you wanted to use crayons or something like that, you can do that as well. All I did with my colored pencil is I just colored in my shape, and I did my best to stay inside the lines. Just going to color this in. And then I colored in the edges too. You could kind of see it down here. So I'm just going to lightly color in these edges, going all the way back to the vanishing point. And you don't have to use colored pencils. You could use crayons if you want. Markers would be a little bit difficult to get the color blend, but you could still use them and layer marker on top of marker to get a little bit darker of a color if you want. Okay, so I colored it all in. It just has a base color right now. Now, going back into space, what I want it to do is get darker, so then that way it looks like it's going back into space, and you're pushing that sense of space even more. So what I'm going to do is go down to kind of close to where the vanishing point is, and I'm not going to press down so hard that I break a pencil. I don't even know if I have that much strength to do that anyway. But what I'm going to do is just press down a little bit harder. Do you see how that makes a darker value of that color? So I'm going to press down hard, and then as I'm moving towards this edge line, I'm going to press down less hard, less hard, less hard until it completely changes into this color. So again, I'm pushing down hard now. Now that I'm moving a little bit closer, I'm lessening the pressure that's on my pencil, so I'm not pushing down so hard. And then eventually what you're going to do is blend that color into the color that's already there. Do you see how it kind of fades from light to dark? That's called a gradient. And a gradient happens whenever you focus on the pressure that's on your pencil. So if I push down really, really hard, it's going to be a lot darker. The less pressure that I put on my pencil, the lighter the value is going to be. And you could really get a good range of value just using one colored pencil. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm just going to darken the bottom part as well and blend that out. Ta-da! Alright, so to finish up this drawing, all I did was follow the steps that I talked to you about with coloring it all in one color and then really darkening that spaces going back to the horizon line. And then as a final little touch, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I just took a dark colored pencil and I just kind of outlined the sides. Make sure you go really slow if you're going to outline them, just so then that way you keep your lines nice and tight. And also, there's no harm in lining it up with your ruler and tracing over those as well. And then if you wanted to add something cool to the background, maybe you do want to add a sky and you do want to add some land, you totally can. But if not, this looks pretty cool on its own. So I hope you really enjoyed learning how to take things back using 1-point perspective, and tune in for next time. See you guys later.